Welcome to Living from the Inside Out with Holly Wade. Living from the Inside Out is about living fully, guided from your inside. Holly shares the wisdom of how your mind, body, and spirit are truly connected and that you deep down know your own answers. Holly and her guests will provide tips, practices, and inspirational stories to help you approach your life from your own heart. And here's Holly.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us on Living from the Inside Out. I'm your host, Holly Wade, and I am delighted today to finally get to talk to Jenny Eden Berk. We've connected for a couple of years, and we've said, initially we wanted to collaborate, and 2 years later we're finally collaborating. And we've been watching each other and following each other and cheering each other on as we've grown our own coaching businesses. But Jenny, I'd love to have you introduce yourself and let our listeners know what you do, who you are, what you do, all that good, juicy stuff.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on, Holly. And good things come to those who wait, right? It finally took 2 years, but we're finally together collaborating and it feels amazing. My name is Jenny Eden Berk, and I am a certified eating psychology coach and a body image mentor. I'm also a motivational speaker and the best-selling author of the book, The Body Image Blueprint. So I really devote my time to helping women and men heal their relationship with food and with bodies.
I love that because we were just talking about this before we went live, that that connection to the body, the relationship with the body and the food, that's a big one.
It totally is.
And it's a game changer.
Mm-hmm. And it's something that so many people struggle with. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter your size or your shape or whatever. Our society is such that we feel like there has to be some sort of cookie cutter, perfect, clean way to eat, or a perfect way to move. And it's just not true. And I subscribed to it for years. Like, oh, I've got to run. I've got to be a runner. I've got to eat clean. I've got to eat this and that. And it's exhausting. And it's painful to the psyche at times because we're so filled with morality and guilt and conflict if we're not doing what we feel like we're quote unquote supposed to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been a fitness person for 25 years now. And I was a hit it hard girl. Early on, and some days teaching 5 times a day and pounding my body. And in my late 20s, my body hurt. And I thought, this isn't supposed to be this way. And, and it's not that I didn't enjoy teaching and doing what I did, but it was just like, is this really what it's going to be? Like my back hurt, my knees hurt, and that didn't make sense to me. This was supposed to, help us feel good. And I didn't feel good.
I know. Isn't that ironic? It's like, well, I'm doing what everybody's saying I'm supposed to do and I'm hurting. So what does that mean? Should I listen to everybody else or should I listen to my body? And it sounds like you got a point where you listened and you were like, hey, what's going on here? What do I need to change? What do I need to do?
Yeah. And what's really interesting is that when I was doing all the hit it hard stuff, I couldn't get the body that I wanted. It was not working. And what I know now is I was creating more inflammation in my body. And which is funny because I was a fitness person. This is like the part that they tell you, you're just taught how to make this machine and how to keep building the stress on the body so that the body will rise up to meet that stressor, that challenge that you're putting on it. It'll rise up to grow to meet that load. Mm-hmm. And but what that doesn't take into account is that our bodies are dynamic and fluid. And it was interesting because it was when I switched to mind body and doing Pilates and yoga that I started to see the changes in my middle that I was looking for through cardio. And it was when I just softened and started I've always loved to dance, and I found something called groove. And when I started doing that, so all my regimen is yoga, sometimes some Pilates, but mainly yoga, walking, and dancing. That's it.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's your story is very similar to mine. Like I always hit it hard too. And I only exercised to lose weight. I mean, why else would you exercise? I only exercised to eat more that night, to like burn the calories.
Right.
And whatever it took, I did it. And I was like you, like cardio all the way. Like I don't have, why would I do yoga? Like yoga doesn't burn calories. Why would I do weight training? Weight training isn't going to burn calories. And it was so like myopic and so like single-minded. It was so narrow-minded that when I finally gave myself permission to do exactly what you're saying, like I love to dance too. Like, why does that not count as movement? It does count. And I love to hike. That counts. And I love to do yoga and just, and that when I realized like, oh my gosh, like exercise doesn't have to be something I dread anymore. That was like, oh my gosh, mic drop.
Yeah,
like,
no doubt.
Holy cow, that's amazing.
No doubt. So tell us a little bit, you're starting to dive into your story, but tell us, what was it that changed it for you? Where did that happen?
Yeah, I feel like everybody has like a breakdown moment that leads to like a major breakthrough. And I feel like I had a lot of micro breakdown moments where I was a chronic dieter and I was never happy. I thought that being in a smaller body would give me everything that I wanted, success and admiration and a sense of belonging and a sense of being loved and desired and all the things. And that I thought, that's the dieting promise. That's the promise of dieting culture. But I never felt that. All I felt was resentment and hunger and exhaustion and misery. And it was soul crushing. And I just finally, at one point, this was like about 3 years ago, I went to see a functional medicine doctor because I was doing all my normal things and I couldn't lose weight. And I was so angry at my body. Like, why are you not cooperating with me? Why are you not doing what I think it's supposed to do?
It feels like a betrayal.
Yes. I felt like literally, what do I have to take? What does it have to take? I have to do exercise 3 hours a day and eat nothing. Is that what it's going to take? And I was just so angry. And I went to see this doctor and she's like, well, you have a ton of inflammation and you need to give up gluten and you need to give up dairy and tomatoes and peanuts and like this whole other list. And I did it diligently. I was like, all right, I'm doing it. And I did it for a year and I'm already a vegetarian. So I could barely eat anything. And then I just remember very clearly, I went to my block party, my neighborhood block party, and I was feeling like really vulnerable, like really hungry. I was feeling celebratory and there was pizza there. And I just went to town on that pizza, like something snapped in me. And I was then when I realized like, I can't do this anymore. Like this isn't right. Like I can't do constant deprivation, constant misery. And then for what? So that I can ricochet to the other side and I binge on pizza? Like, that's not good. So I decided like there and then that something major had to change. And I went to the Institute for the Psychology of Eating. And I learned all about the mind-body connection. And I learned about, who we are as eaters is just as important as what we eat. And that was like, oh my God, and I got permission. I felt like I needed it all along. Someone gave me permission to not diet anymore. And it was like, really? And it was like the skies parted and like my shoulder, everything felt lighter to me. And I felt so relieved. And that's when I knew, like, I almost like became woke. I'm like, all along, I've never had to do this. I've been putting it on myself and thinking happiness was going to be there. And I can tell you, I've never been happier now. Because I'm so at peace with food and I'm not putting these arbitrary rules on myself anymore and moving in a way that I wasn't conducive for my body mechanics. Like it really wasn't honoring where my strength is and what I love and where joy resides, so it's been a huge turnaround.
I think one of the things that I have recognized in all the marketing that's thrown at us and the multi-billion-dollar industry called health and beauty and wellness, which is not, it's a big lie. But what I've seen is from just time and time again, and I played it too, it's all one big distraction. And it keeps us from living.
Yes.
You know, we get this gift of these few years on this planet. And, you know, I can think back and go, wow, I really wasted a lot of time chasing something.
Yeah.
And, you know, the perfect body, the perfect career, the perfect whatever the case may be. And I love that you said, you know, now there's this peace. And that's it. There's something about when you find that contentment and just embrace life.
Yeah, I really resonate with what you're saying, because it's almost as if we're constantly looking outward, like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? Who's going to help me? And what I did, and what you did too, was started to tune inward and realize that I have all the answers right now. I have everything I need right now to be successful and to be healthy and to be nourished. And that was incredibly empowering to me, to realize I've been looking all different places, and the last place I was looking was inside me. You know, and there's a level of body trust that can occur when you start to say, hey, you know, I'm going to listen to you in a deeper way. Like, what do you have to say? You know, I'm ready to raise the white flag. I'm ready to hear what you have to say. You know, I surrender. And it's beautiful when that happens.
Absolutely. Because we've never been taught that we can trust ourselves or that we have the answers. It's like you're told that, but not really taught that.
Yes. Yes.
So you always get the, well, listen to your heart. What's your heart say? You're growing up, and it's like, well, I don't know what that says, because I don't, you know, because we've never been taught to listen to that still small voice within. We listen to that monkey mind.
Yeah. And this encapsulates this whole podcast, right? Living from the inside out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Which is exactly what it is about. I loved earlier you've used two words that I'd like you to dive in more, especially coming from that place of psychology.
Sure.
You used that you were always hungry. And I know you were talking about the physical, but there was something else you were hungry for.
Yeah.
And you said, and then you flipped it just a little bit ago, and you said, you know, I realized that I had what I needed to nourish myself. And I pick up on that's really what you are helping people to do.
Yes, that's it. That's exactly it. It's bringing the power back to the person. It's reclaiming the power that they didn't realize that they had. Why? Because, like, exactly what you just said, we weren't taught that. You know, it's one thing to say, oh, trust your heart, trust your intuition, but it's very different when it's in a real life situation, and you're faced with a decision, or you're faced with something big.
Yeah.
And that's when the fear sets in, where you're like, what if I do the wrong thing? What if I can't trust myself? What if my body, I do everything and I listen and my body still breaks down? What if? That it's so intolerable that we just feel like the only way to be in action is to be taking steps to do something. And actually, sometimes you just need to sit there and be and listen. You know, we're such an output. We got to take this step and do this and take action and, you know, blah, 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 blah. And sometimes it prevents us from even just knowing what's happening right here in the moment and taking that time for deep listening, you know? And that's what I help people do. Like, people, even my kids, they'll say like, well, how many cookies can I have tonight? And I'll be like, well, how can I answer that for you? I don't have your body. I don't know what your body's feeling like right now. I don't know, you know, this is your decision. And I'm trying to have them feel empowered at a young age to trust their appetite and to trust their cravings and whatever is speaking to them. And my job, you know, is to provide as many healthy foods as I can and put it in their environment and make it for them. But that's all I can do. I can't force my kids to eat 2 cookies instead of 3 cookies. And who am I to decide that anyway?
Right.
You know, they've got to have sovereignty and efficacy in their own bodies.
Right.
So that's a bit of a tangent, but
no,
it is what I help people do.
I love it. And so what would that look like if someone says, hey, I think I want to work with you, or I think I need to I need to work with you, what would that look like for them? Because that's a scary thing. Sometimes it's like, oh, I know I need help, but what's that really going to be like?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of ways that it can show up. So I work sometimes with people just on body image, and sometimes I work with literally just binge eating. And sometimes it's their whole relationship with food. Sometimes it's feeling a sense of efficacy with their meal planning. I mean, there's so many ways. Yeah. But for me, I like to really just help people. Like, a lot of people will come to me and they're like, just tell me what to eat and just tell me what to do. And I have to say, like, I wish I could do that. I wish I could just push a button and tell you what to do and everything's going to be this panacea. But the truth is, you have to go on an exploration. You have to be a dietary detective. You have to decide, run the experiment with me as a safety net and as a place of support and a container for you to experiment with things that you've never done before. And that might mean abundance mindset. So, a lot of people are fearful of foods and they're fearful of overeating. And so they don't have certain things in the house, like no chocolate in the house and don't eat after 6 and all this stuff. And I'll say, like, let's do a mindful eating exercise with chocolate. Let's see what it's like to trust your body. Let's see what it's like to trust all the sensations that you have and all the different amazing cues that your body gives you if you'd only tap into it. So sometimes we work on that, mindful and intuitive eating. Sometimes we'll work on faulty beliefs or toxic beliefs that they've had about food or their bodies or themselves in general. So a lot of times it's stress reduction techniques, even just being able to get from a stress response to a relaxation response, because when we're in a constant low-level stress response, we're operating from the base part of our brains, like instinct and stimuli response, as opposed to letting the prefrontal cortex come in and all the executive functioning. And that can only happen when we're relaxed, So it's a lot of different ways that I end up working with people. I'm sure it's similar to what you do too.
Yeah, because every person's an individual.
Yes.
And so when you operate out of a program, you're just programming them instead of helping them to unlearn their habits and where those beliefs came from or those thoughts came from initially, and exploring whether they continue to serve you or not.
That's it. Oh my gosh. Like, I so resonate with that. And one word that you just said is so spot on, which is the unlearning.
Yeah.
We always feel like we have to learn, but sometimes we actually have to take the time to be curious about what we've already learned to see if it still resonates with us, if it's still true, or is it just the story that we continue to tell ourselves?
I had someone yesterday that I was talking to, and I loved, it was just so beautifully put that it served us at that time in our life, but now we're wiser. And you can let it go now, because now you need different. Now you can do different. And I just thought that was a really beautiful way to put it, because I think in the process of unlearning, sometimes we can feel guilty. Then like, or we'll beat ourselves up because, well, why did I do that for so long? Why did I hang on to that for so long? Or why didn't I know? And we'll tell ourselves other stories.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And if we just come to that place of, that's what I knew at the time, and that was the best I could do at that time.
Yes, that's so compassionate. It's like bringing compassion to yourself and to like realize that, yeah, it did serve you then, but it's okay to reconsider and it's okay to let go if it's no longer serving you. And I say that all the time with nutrition too. Like, people would say like, well, I used to have this vegan diet and it really worked for me and I was feeling great. And now I said, well, if it's not working for you anymore, that's okay. We go through phases of nourishment. If you're pregnant, you eat different. If you're breastfeeding, you eat different. If you're training for a 10K, you eat different. If you're sick, you eat different. If you're in a big life transition, you eat different. Like, that's okay, Yeah. I love that so much.
Yeah. So how can people connect with you? And tell us more about your book. I'd really like to know more about your book. I've seen it out there, and I know when you launched it, I was really excited for you. Really happy.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. So
tell us about that, because some people might want to just dive into that.
Yeah, it was in my head for a long time. Like I knew I wanted to write this book, and I had every excuse in the book not to write it because I was so busy and like the vulnerability. And I ended up taking this beta course called the 90-day book. And I literally wrote and published the book in 90 days with hand holding. Like, so from everything from the brainstorming and researching the idea, making sure it was a viable idea, to the outline, to the writing, to the editing and the publishing and the promotion. It was such an amazing journey. But the book is really divided into 3 parts. The first part is I share my story of dieting indoctrination and how I eventually finally wrestled my way out of it. So it's very like vignette style, like lots of stories that I went through where I was starting to realize my identity and my opinion about my body versus other people's opinion and society's opinion. Right. So I think a lot of people relate to that because there's little stories in there about middle school and about, things that you're like, people have said to me like, oh yeah, that totally was me. And then I was very curious about what other people went through in their own body image journeys and how they perceive themselves and what their upbringing was like. And so I interviewed over 60 people ranging from ages 22 all the way to 70. And I asked them all kinds of questions like, when do you feel most comfortable in your skin? When do you least feel comfortable in your skin? When did you first notice that you even had an opinion about your body? What was something somebody ever said about your appearance that changed the way you thought about yourself? What would it take to love your body unconditionally? Like all kinds of questions. And the responses were so unbelievable. They were courageous. They were graceful. They were, it was full of grace. It was full of courage and vulnerability and power. And I wanted to put everything in there, but I ended up curating some theme, so the whole second half of the book are basically like little case studies and little ways that people have that you can really connect with others and understand that you're not alone and that other people struggle too. And it's not just about weight, by the way, or size. And people talked about their hair, their nose, their skin, their breasts, everything, that we all have these areas where we're like, we feel like it should be a certain way and it's not. Like people have straight hair, they want curly hair. If they have curly hair, they want straight hair, and all these different things. And then the last part of the book is really, I identified 4 body image healing realms, if you will. And I touch on each one and give really actionable and really, effective steps that people can take to start healing their own body image.
I love that. I also love that you interviewed such a range of ages because it's so true. I mean, I worked in higher ed, so of course I worked with young adults, and we've been there. Like we've been there. Yeah. And so I could just be so compassionate with them. And I think for me, that allowed me to be compassionate with myself at that age. To go back and go, I know. Words, you just go, if I could just give you a big hug and say, it's okay. You don't have to do that.
Yes, you're enough. You're enough.
Yeah. But the other thing is, in recognizing both of my grandmas and seeing their cycles, which they didn't even need to do. Like, as an example, a couple years ago, I walked into my grandma's little apartment and she had fat burning tea on her counter. At the time, she was 88. And I thought, what in the world? And it just made me so sad that this has been a lifetime struggle. That even at 88, she couldn't accept her body. That there was something that, just something that
like want to cry, actually.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
About that.
Absolutely. And it was such a, like, for me, it was kind of a moment of rage in our society in why do we think that we need this? Why do we think that this is okay? This has been a lifelong imprisonment.
Oh, that's a powerful way of describing it. It's so true.
I
describe it as being like unshackled. Like I'm finally unshackled from this craziness,
Yeah.
And I work with this woman who's in her 60s, And I work with somebody who's a freshman in college. And it's so interesting to see the dichotomy between them, and the woman who's in her 60s, she was just like me. Like when I told her she could let go, it was such a relief. Like no one had ever told her, like, she doesn't have to do this anymore. And now she has like such a peaceful, happy relationship with food that she never thought was possible, and then the college student, I'm just like, please, you're so young, you can do this, you can let go of this, you don't have to subscribe to this. And it's definitely harder because she's on a college campus with all these other kids and for college freshmen, you go from, likely your parents feeding you and making meals or whatever to being on your own, having to make really like decisions on your own about what to eat and when to eat and how many bites. And
there's so much misinformation that they're sharing with one another. And
I was going to say, like,
they may choose vegan or vegetarian, but they're not doing it right. They're not doing it in a way that really gives them all the nutrients that they need, and creating more starvation in their body instead.
Yeah. And really just whether you're 20 or you're 80, the feelings are the same. The desires are the same. We just want love. We want acceptance, belonging, success. We all want the same things. And, and it's, you said something that really was very powerful, which is just that it's, that was this your grandmother, you said, that the fat burn? Like, I feel like I have a potential now to tap into anything I want to do in life. But there was no way I could have done that. There was no way I could have written a book or started my own business if I was still counting every calorie and still at the gym 3 hours a day and starving at night. There's no way. And women are playing small by focusing on their exterior bodies and their perfection with eating. And just imagine all that bandwidth and time and energy and emotional space, what women could do, how we could show up in the world, and what we can contribute. I
love that you bring that up, because it's really about taking responsibility and owning our own bodies, our own lives, and everything within it. It's not, women, I feel, have a tendency to blame men because, it's about, there is some validity to our appearance and our looks, but it's not what we think.
Well, it's women too.
Yes, and that's true. And women can be really, really vicious to one another.
And judgmental, and really judgmental.
Yeah. And when you anchor into yourself and that confidence is in there, they can't rock you.
I know. It's pretty cool, right?
That's where you tap into your power in a really good way.
Yeah. And it's very similar to what we've been saying all along. It's trust. It's inner trust that my opinion matters more than anybody else's about myself. And if I'm comfortable and content in my skin and with who I am, you're right. You're untouchable. Nobody else can take that away from you.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is the gift. I think that's the thing that I've come away with in my own personal life and in doing my own inner work, is that is the gift right there. Because if someone takes that away from me, that's because I allowed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that is mine. And no one can touch that.
Yeah, it's like MC Hammer. No, can't touch that.
Yes, I love it. Yeah. And that is the freedom right there. That's the freedom that we're all looking for. And that's the love that we're looking for.
Yeah. Two perfect words, freedom and love, right?
We can give that to ourselves. And the more you practice that, the more it shows up in your life in other ways.
Oh my gosh, totally. It's like a tumbleweed. It just keeps gaining traction and momentum, and it's amazing when that happens. And, you and I are both so similar in our coaching, and what we do is we just want women, and for me, men, I work with men too. Just to feel good in their skin, who they are, and trust that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I said women earlier, but men have those issues too. It plays out differently, but the anxieties are there, the pressure now on men to look a certain way is not what it was in the past.
Yeah.
You know, they're getting the images that we have of men in magazines and things like that are as unrealistic as the images that they see of women.
Totally. They just handle it differently. I actually did a Facebook post about this because I feel like men don't have as many of outlets. They're not like encouraged to talk about it in the same way. Or, you know, I feel like they don't have people as often readily on hand to discuss those types of really tough feelings around their body and appearance. So I always love working with men because I can hold space for them in that way and be that person where they can talk about it. And, you know, just that feels really good.
Yeah. Yeah. And they need those soft places to land.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
The world can be pretty brutal to any of us. So they need that too. And sometimes we forget that. Mm-hmm. So I'm just so excited about you and your work and getting to talk about this today. Where can we find you?
So the best place to find me is my website, which is www.jennyeden.coaching.com. And for anybody who's interested in listening, I'd love to invite you to my Facebook group too, called Wellness Warriors, which I show up a lot in, and it's a great community of just like-minded people who are working to navigate a healthy lifestyle.
And do you just do one-on-one coaching, or do you do any like small group types of things?
Oh yeah, I do one-on-one. I have something I call accountability pod, and it's really just a small group coaching. Right now there are 3 people in it. I'm going to cap it at 5. And it's just like, it's almost like we could just talk about what is going on in our culture and how we're navigating meal planning, how we're navigating really tough habits and behaviors that we're trying to change in a really heart-centered way, and to like, you know, without judgment, with a lot of compassion. And then I also have my signature course, which is the Eating Empowerment series, which I'll be launching again in September. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways to work with me.
Awesome. Jenny, it has been a delight to connect. I look forward to connecting again and again and again.
Me too. I don't know why we waited 2 years, but I
know, because you were writing a book and I was doing things that I needed to do, and now the time is right.
And now the time is right. I'm a believer in that it's, you know, always when we need it, right? So,
agreed. Amen, sister.
And thank you so much for having me today here. It was great talking with you.
Absolutely. So thanks for joining us for Living from the Inside Out. If you didn't catch how to catch Jenny, it's okay. It's in the coaching notes. So you can always go back and find the website and find where you can connect with her. And I hope that you'll join us next week. Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining us at Living from the Inside Out. Listen every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern. To connect with Holly, just go to www.globalvoiceradio.com. Global Voice Radio is where your voice and your message is heard.